Over the next few months, there are a number of high-profile events involving President Trump. So it's really difficult to know, where any threat will manifest. I would have to believe Homeland Security, FBI, Secret Service, all the different agencies involved with providing security to all these different types of events, they're looking at a whole number of different scenarios. And then they're going to have to assess of these scenarios, which are the ones that they can provide the most security against, which are the ones that are the most probable. He has the highest level of security every day just because he's the president and he has a Secret Service around him. But as we have seen these attempted attacks against him. Even with President Trump and all these layers and rings of security around him, he unfortunately has not been immune from these types of attacks between the birthday celebration all the way through the final game of the World Cup, which I believe is on July 19th in New York. We've got all the events associated with the 250th anniversary of the U.S. independence, to include what is going to happen on July 4th. So I'd have to imagine those events, and there's not just one single one, there's a whole slew of them up until July 4th, all going to be have to be carefully made. The plan, at least for these fixed events and the ones that are high profile, the planning for each of these has most likely started months ago. So it's very iterative, it's very dynamic, and it involves a lot of collaboration and coordination and planning. Up until the moment of the event, things could change on the fly, especially on the threat side. So if there are indicators about people or in that area where the event will take place, then it's a question of, okay, if there's someone who's previously on the radar screen of the FBI or other state and local law enforcement, and they're known to have extremist leanings or tendencies, then you have to go out and find those people to make sure you push them as far away from an event as possible. President Trump has showed that he is not going to sort of just stay in a bubble, basically, either in these indoor events or just inside the White House. And I think part of his style is to be outside and outdoors, and he draws energy from that.
Continuing Iranian threat that resulted from the strike that killed Qasem Soleimani in January of 2020. And that's a list of people. It starts with the president. So that threat environment remains. And obviously, at the moment, we're having a war with Iran. So one might well suspect that that the list has grown longer, or that their desire has grown more intense. So I think that's out there as a kind of baseline for the Secret Service and others to worry about. In the case of the attempts on Trump and individual actors, in the nutcase variety, in in times gone by, when I was UN ambassador, the State Department's Diplomatic Security Bureau gave me protection. And they used to say they were worried constantly about what they called EDPs, emotionally disturbed persons, who, for whatever reason, get it in their heads they want to go after somebody. And those are very hard to defend against because you don't know, they don't communicate with other people. It's not part of a conspiracy. The Secret Service tries to draw the perimeter around the president as widely as they can. And that gets in the way of what every president wants to do, which is mingle with the people. And look, that's a problem right along. American presidents who have been shot by people close up are really, it's an amazing number, up to and including Jerry Ford with when he was in California on that trip. So the risk is, I think, has always been out there, but in times where there's a lot of emotional, there's politics is very divisive, and sometimes that can set people off. And I think the foreign threat is something at this point that we probably haven't seen at this level in a while. It's not that it's been absent, but I think people are more aware of it. Another problem dealing with a country like Iran, you could send off some fanatic to do something, and like the famous Japanese soldiers who were still out defending islands in the Pacific 10 years after 1945, they may not get the word that, okay, we've decided we don't want to assassinate the president or whatever, and they may still be out there at risk. And it is a risk as well that another hostile power might like to have a false flag sort of operation so that it would look like it was somebody else.
We've seen over the past few years more on the foreign side, less so here inside the United States, is the use of drones, both on the battlefield and perhaps in sort of unconventional warfare realms. Thankfully, we haven't seen those types of attacks here inside the United States, but I have to believe again, my colleagues are former colleagues are hard at work trying to think about that. Now, is there someone out there, even as a lone actor, not affiliated with a foreign terrorist group or foreign government, thinking about using a drone in an attack? Maybe they are, maybe they've tried, they just haven't been successful. But countering the drone threat to these outside events, yeah, that has to be a major consideration. Now, I don't recall my career from 2002, 2018, we ever really saw a manifestation of that or even contemplated it because we had our hands full just dealing with the traditional types of threats, some suicide bombers and shootings and car rammings and things like that. But I think, and those are all still very viable, and we've seen those over the past year here. But now I think you have to add the planners have to add the drone threat into their planning consideration as well.
There's also just the technological issue with drones. That's what comes to everybody's mind. You know, in some places, the work that people see the Secret Service do, which is the officers around the president, that's called close protection work. There's obviously a much broader intelligence gathering and preparatory amount of work that has to be done, but we're way beyond, in some cases, what close protection officers can guard against a drone strike or something like that. And that, I mean, you know, the technology is evolving every day on the battlefield in Ukraine. So these threats, it's hard to imagine how complex it might be. So that's something that's added on. This is a relatively new development for any service that provides protection.
I think what we've seen is that there are any number of people who want to see the president attacked, killed. And so from that perspective, any high profile event where he's speaking at, particularly one where, of course, he's the focus of attention when it's his actual birthday, is likely to be a concern to security services based on, kind of recent events. So it would seem to me that this is an obvious, kind of magnet for extremists and other lunatics who might wish to attempt to go down in history. And I would imagine there is a particularly rigorous security process in place, given recent developments in that area. So I would imagine it's going to be like getting into Fort Knox. It's quite likely the Iranians, will look to seize any opportunity they can to exact a blow against the man who they will blame for having launched a war against them in the Middle East. So, the threats are both internal from local lunatics and extremists, but also potentially externally from agents of countries who would like to do the US harm, and Iran is principal among those. Everyone knows, unfortunately, that job comes with significant personal risk. The number of attempts on President Trump have, of course, been even more so than usual. But it's not uncommon, as we know, for there to be political violence threats against the US president, and every president faces these problems. But the answer is never to hide away. It is to, ensure that security is handled properly and that the president get on with doing the things that he would like to do, and not, therefore, being run by the agenda of those who would seek to stop America being America. I'm quite confident Washington will be heavily locked down in terms of what can and cannot be possible in that period. It may mean, of course, some strictures for people who are actually visiting, but I'm sure everyone would agree that security for those events is a small price worth paying to be able to celebrate the US birthday in the style that they will no doubt feel they should be accustomed to.